We live in a world that just screams share everything, right? But what if I told you the real secret to deeper trust and honestly bigger success is actually being more private? Yeah, it sounds like a total paradox, doesn't it? Let's dive in and figure this out. Just let that one sink in for a second. We're all kind of pressured to post every update, broadcast every little thing, but this quote, it just nails a huge modern problem. When you put everything out there, does any of it really feel special anymore? It feels like the value just gets watered down. And that right there, that's the oversharing paradox. We're sharing more about our lives than any generation in history, but somehow, so many of us end up feeling less connected. It's wild. Even our biggest ambitions can kind of lose their magic the second we tell the whole world about them. So it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Is sharing more really the answer to connecting more? Or have we all been missing a key ingredient in this whole equation? Because as we're about to see, the answer, well, it might just surprise you. So what's the fix? The solution is actually a really powerful and, pretty counterintuitive idea: strategic scarcity. Now hold on. This isn't about becoming a hermit or being sneaky, not at all. It's about being incredibly thoughtful with the things that matter most. So let's get specific. What exactly is information scarcity? Well, it's just the practice of being discreet. It's about consciously choosing who you share with and what you share. It's about treating your personal stories, your struggles, and your goals like the treasures they are. And listen, this is a really, really important distinction to make. We're talking about discretion here. Discretion is driven by wisdom. Its whole purpose is to protect value and build trust. That's a world away from secrecy, which usually just comes from a place of fear and, makes people suspicious. We're firmly in the discretion camp. Okay, here's a perfect way to think about it. Imagine your private information, your dreams, your relationship issues. Imagine it's a currency. Now, if you just throw that money around everywhere, it becomes worthless, right? But if you invest it carefully with just a few trusted people, its value skyrockets. All right, so how does this actually work in the real world? Let's start with one of the most important areas of life, our relationships. How can this idea of scarcity actually protect and strengthen your partnerships? Well, it starts by avoiding a really common and really destructive pattern called emotional triangulation. And you know exactly what this is. It's when you have a problem with your partner, but instead of talking to them, you go vent to a friend or your mom to try and get them on your side. And this shows the trap perfectly. So, step one, a conflict happens. But then, instead of dealing with it head on, you go vent to somebody else. All that emotional energy, all that intimacy that should be going back into the relationship is now getting rerouted. It's leaking out. The partnership gets weaker. And here's the kicker: the original problem is still just sitting there completely unsolved. Okay, so that's relationships. But this principle is so powerful, it can actually be a secret weapon for achieving your biggest goals. Let's dig into how that works. To get why, we need to talk about something called the intention-behavior gap. I know, it sounds fancy and scientific, but it's really just the name for that frustrating gap between what we say we're going to do and what we actually end up doing. Okay, so let's make this real. Imagine you decide you're going to run a marathon. What's the first thing so many of us do? We post about it everywhere. We tell all our friends, our family, I'm running a marathon. And what happens next? Of course, the likes, the comments, they all start pouring in. Wow, you're amazing. You're such an inspiration. You get this massive rush of validation. But notice, it's for the idea of running, not for actually doing the hard work yet. So what's actually happening inside your brain is that all this praise triggers a little hit of dopamine. That feel-good chemical. Your brain literally gets a reward, and it feels almost as good as if you'd already crossed the finish line. And here is the really dangerous part. Your brain got its reward way too early. It feels a sense of completion, which just sucks the motivation right out of you, the motivation you need for all those 5 a.m. training runs. You basically got the trophy before you even ran the race. So, whether we're talking about our relationships or running that marathon, there is a single fundamental principle at work here that explains why privacy is just so powerful. And that principle? It comes straight from economics, believe it or not. It's the law of diminishing returns. And it doesn't just apply to things like factories, it applies perfectly to our personal information. The more you give something away, the less valuable each share becomes. This chart just lays it out so clearly. Look at the value. When you share something precious with just one or two confidants, it's sky high. Now tell a wider circle, and see, it drops. Announce it publicly to everyone, the specialness, the impact, it pretty much vanishes. So what's the bottom line in all this? First, and most importantly, remember that being discreet is about wisdom, not about fear. It creates a protective bubble for the intimacy in your relationships, and it keeps your motivation tank full so you can actually achieve your goals. It's this crazy paradox where, by sharing less, you actually make the moments you do share so much more meaningful. So, I'll leave you with this question to think about. What's a goal you have right now? A struggle you're going through, or maybe even just some really good news? Who really needs to know about it? What's the first secret you're going to keep, not out of fear, but as an act of power and wisdom?